Welcome, I'm Michael Bickert. Thanks for joining me today as we explore concepts with the objective of improving your management skills and growing your business. Do you have your notepad and pen handy? If not, pause the video and grab those right now because I want you to make a commitment that you will take some notes. Take down some sort of action item that you can implement in your business today. That's what this is all about, implementation to drive your business forward. Let me ask you this. Are you working too hard? Now, if you can answer that question without significant introspection and reflection, I would submit to you that you are dismissing it. You're not, in fact, answering the question honestly. I want you to think about this today. Let's dive into this a little bit. And it is a significant question. It is worthy of exploration. Are you working too hard? If you quickly say, no, I'm not working hard enough, well, then why aren't you working harder? So go ahead and make a commitment to work a little bit harder. But if you are answering that way because you're like, you can never work too hard, I would challenge that concept. And if you think, yes, I am working too hard, then I have another question for you. Why? Why are you working so hard? Do you think that you have to? Are you trapped doing that? Let's explore this concept. Are you working too hard? We can understand when we use an analogy of athletics and fitness that there's a concept of overtraining. Both amateur and professional athletes have fallen victim to the perils of overtraining from time to time. If you're working beyond what your physical limitations are for recovery, for recuperation, if you're working beyond that, then you will slowly start to fade and you will deteriorate and you will be susceptible to injury and a host of other symptoms. And I think that's a powerful analogy because the same goes for other things in life, including work. Certainly you can overwork, you can work too hard. We've heard of the concept of workaholic. So I'd like to discuss some of the symptoms and the ways you can tell whether you're working too hard or not. As you look at this, ask yourself, all right, well, how do I feel about work? What sort of results am I getting with the work that I'm doing? What am I focused on? Am I getting good return on my investment of effort? Are there diminishing returns on my effort? And certainly there has to be. We can agree that there's a point at which you will not get out as much. You will not get as much of a return on your investment of effort as you once did. So up to that point, then I guess that's where we would define sort of the sweet spot of how hard you should be working. And we also understand the concept that sometimes you shouldn't be working harder, you should be working smarter. And we're going to look at that a little bit as well. So let's start there. How do you know if you're working too hard, and what sort of symptoms do you have? The first thing I always looked at, and I have had times in my life where I felt like maybe I was not working nearly hard enough. I felt like sloth had taken over and I was being a little bit lazy, and you don't want that. So examine your conscience and ask yourself, how do you feel about it? You got to be careful though, because if you have this sort of guilty nature where you think I've got to be working harder, and it depends on your paradigm and your upbringing and just sort of the mental thoughts or the mental roadmap, your paradigms of surrounding work. Maybe you had it ingrained in you by your parents or a mentor of some sort, an employer or a coach, that it's all about how hard you work, son. It's all about how hard you've got to work. That's what everything's about. The person who works the hardest gets the most in life. And that's simply not true. We know that we have experienced where we've been working very hard in a situation and somebody who may not even have our gifts and talents sort of gets lucky and they don't work as hard as us and they achieve more. So we know that the world doesn't work that way. It's not simply a matter of the harder you work, the more returns you have on your investment of time and effort. However, it does work that way to a certain point. So again, you've got to be careful when you're doing this sort of reflection, this introspection, and you ask yourself, am I working hard enough? Ask yourself, again, who was it that instilled your work ethic into you? And do you believe that it's all about how hard you work? And challenge that within yourself. What I look at is, what is my attitude toward work? And am I feeling really excited? So are you passionate, enthusiastic? Do you have a lot of vigor for your work? You can't wait. You sort of spring out of bed in the morning, excited about the challenges and tasks you have ahead of you. And when you notice that that is waning or fleeting and you don't have as much enthusiasm, you don't have as much passion or vigor for what you have to do, that can be a symptom of overworking, of working too much. Or it could be a symptom that you're working on the wrong things. There's a little bit of overlap there, and you might notice on any given day or week that you really are exhausted. You felt like you've worked really, really hard, but you're losing enthusiasm. That's, again, I think, where you're saying you are working hard enough. Maybe you're working too hard, but you're not working smart enough. So that's the first symptom, is monitor your passion, your enthusiasm, your vigor. Are you excited, enthusiastic about getting started, getting going on the day? If not, I would sort of put that as a symptom down and say, okay, maybe I'm overworking. Now that we've taken a look at the mental aspect of, as in terms of a symptom that you might be overworking, what about physically? Are you physically drained? Are you exhausted? Do you find yourself yawning in the afternoon and you're unable to focus on work, or you can't do things in the evening? Maybe you're no good to anyone. You're ready to fall asleep before supper. You're exhausted. Maybe you're not getting home in time for supper. Maybe you're staying at work way too long, or you're working at home when you should be eating. Take a look at the physical symptoms. If you are exhausted, do you have bags under your eyes? Are you getting sick more often? Take a look at those kinds of things, because those can be symptomatic of overworking and having a lack of balance in your life. And the other thing about this is I would look at your sleep patterns. Are you waking up in the middle of the night constantly and you're thinking about, stressing out about things related to work? And are you waking up early? Do you have a hard time getting to sleep? These kinds of things. If you look at a guy like, or listen to a guy like Matthew Walker, a sleep expert, he would get you to believe that your performance in life in general is so tied into the amount of sleep you're getting. If your work is affecting your sleep, and you haven't thought about this, but maybe you're having a hard time getting to bed, or you're waking up, as I said, you can be really hurting your work performance. So there's this cyclical nature, this sort of a downward spiral that you can get into if you're not careful. So that's another symptom I'd look at, is how is your sleep? Also, how is your nutrition? Is your work getting in the way of your ability to eat the way that you know that you should? Whether it means that you're not eating healthy foods, or you're not eating with the schedule that you'd want to eat. Now, some of you may engage in time-restricted eating and intermittent fasting and these types of things, or you want to try to do those things, or you want to maybe restrict a certain type of food. Maybe you're into carnivorous eating, or you're a vegan, or you're ketogenic or something like this, but because of work, you aren't able to pursue what you want to, because you can't make good food choices because you're prioritizing work. Again, if you find that that's happening, you might say, well, I was going to get to it later, but you might be overworking. You might be getting diminishing returns on your efforts, or you might be minimizing the amount of effort, or rather return you can get on your effort, because you are not paying attention to your nutrition, which that is something that you can leverage. A good nutrition, good sleeping patterns, good physical health will really help when it comes to working. I mean, your brain is powered by your nutrition. And so if you are unable to solve problems at work, and that's what we do in management, and as entrepreneurs, business owners, we're constantly trying to solve problems and do some critical thinking, abstract reasoning, and you rely on good nutrition and good sleeping patterns to do these things. So are those symptoms manifesting? And then also I'd look to your social and family life. Are you having problems in relationships? Are you failing to invest time where you need with your spouse or your children? or something else, maybe your spirituality, there are other priorities that you have in your life, and you're failing to dedicate sufficient time to them because of work, then again, by definition, I'd say you're overworking, even if you're not getting the payoff. Even if you're not getting the results, you're not achieving as much as you want to at work, you might be tricking yourselves into thinking, I need to work harder, I need to work longer. Well, is it possible that leveraging some of the time that you can put into relationships, whether it's your spiritual relationship with God or your relationships with your family, those things can actually help you be a better performer? When you become more effective in your non-work life, you're also becoming more effective at work. So much of what we talk about in these discussions has to do with improving our effectiveness. And you can't just focus on improving yourself as an effective manager. You've got to work on becoming a more effective person. And that means you're going to want to leverage good relationships socially, spiritually. So we've talked about mentally, spiritually, physically, all these types of things. Look at these symptoms. Have you gained a bunch of weight? Are you in danger of maybe having a heart attack? Nobody thinks about this when they're building that empire. They're working. Why are you doing this though? What is it that you decided that you wanted to start this business and become a manager? Why did you want to do this? Was it strictly so that you would have more digits in your bank account? Was it strictly so that you could boast about the success? Of course not. This is not a means to an end. It's the journey itself. It's supposed to be a way of improving your life. And if you haven't really sort of sat back and thought about this in a while, it's time that you do that. Today, that's your exercise. Sit back and think, why are you doing what you're doing? And are you sort of insane by that definition attributed most often to Einstein, where you are doing the same things over and over expecting different results? If you're not happy with the results you're getting, you need to change something. Well, I think what happens is so often people focus on, well, I'm getting good results in my business, so I'm going to double down. I'm going to, we live in a society where if a thing is good in some measure, then more must be better. So I've been putting in effort at work, and if effort is good, then more effort is better. But I hope I convince you that there is diminishing results. And what I want you to do is think about outside of business. Is everything going well? When I achieved some of my greatest business success, I gained a whole bunch of weight. And I didn't realize, because it's sort of insidious in nature, what happens when you're gaining weight, when your health is suffering, or when relationships are suffering. These things just deteriorate so slowly that by looking in the mirror every day, you don't really notice any of this stuff. And neither do the people around you. If we talk about relationships, the people you're in relationships with, they don't really notice that it's deteriorating. There's just maybe more frequent times where you're getting into conflict, or you are neglecting something that you should be doing, and it sort of just flies under the radar. You don't notice it. So be careful on this stuff. You need to stop and think. So put down your goals and what is it that you're doing this for, and then look at these periodically. Schedule them into your calendar, where one day you're sitting there and it pops up and you notice that you've blocked off an hour or two to reevaluate your goals and to mark your trajectory on what you'd hope to accomplish outside of business. And I think you'll find that it's not so easy to determine whether you're overworking or not. If you're not doing this stuff, you have to evaluate. And once you've done so and you've looked at the symptoms, whether you're just getting diminishing returns on your investment, you realize that up to a certain point you do seem to be effective and you're getting results, and then they seem to sort of plateau, or you're noticing some of these mental, physical, emotional symptoms, and you realize, hey, I think I am overworking. And the question then becomes, what should I do about it? Well, we don't have to spend much time on that, because it's the same of what you should do to be more effective as a manager, what you should do in life in general. So one thing we always harp on is you have to measure, you have to look. Like I said, you've got to take time out to mark on some sort of operationalized report card of life in general, what trajectory you're on in terms of meeting your goals? Do you have good relationships? Is your health good? Is your spirituality good? The things that you value in life, are you spending time on them? Are you able to invest in them? Are you enjoying some leisure? Do you feel good about, are you contented with life in general? And if not, then, you're making this determination, okay, what am I going to do now? So you're going to measure, then you're going to create a strategy. You're going to make a commitment to yourself that you're going to spend more time. So this comes back to what we say all the time is you can only work on so many important things. Are you spending time on urgent things that are not important? Are you spending time on things that are neither urgent nor important? You got to get that and clear the clutter out of your life and work on only those things that are important to you. You get to define what's important to you. I'm not here to tell you what should be important to you. You already know what's important to you. And as they say, your calendar will indicate what's important to you, whether you admit it or not. In other words, what you're spending your time on is what you are indicating is important. And if you realize that that's incongruent with what you really believe in your heart is important, then change your calendar to reflect that and spend more time on your physical health or on your emotional health. Spend more time doing things in leisure and spending time with those people that you love so that you can invest and get dividends in those relationships as well. You should only be focused on a finite number of things. And at work, we've said you should only focus on 2 things. And so maybe you're going to schedule in 2 most important things outside of work that you're going to do every day, for example. And you're not going to do anything until you get those important things done. I do the same thing in my private life that I do in personal life. I prioritize those things that are most important. In fact, I don't differentiate between them. I just put on my calendar, these are the things that are most important to me. I'm going to get them done today. And if that means that it is non-work related, non-business related, I'm going to do that first. And I told you, I do those things which are the most onerous or the most important right early in the day. I make sure that I get them done. That way I don't have any excuses later and I say, oh, I never got around to that. That really bothers me. I know that's not good for my mental health. So I focus on things in terms of priority early in the day, and then I can sort of wind down and not worry too much. And then I do have more free time toward the latter part of my day. And if I had something that popped up that's really important, I have time to do it. If not, I'm okay. I don't feel bad about it. I use that time for leisure, and that's ordinarily what I do. If you have no time for leisure, if you can't spend any time, your calendar is just full and you take pride in that, I would say that's a symptom that you're you've bought into the wrong paradigm, that you take pride in being busy. And remember, there's a great difference between activity and productivity. And you don't also need to be productive all the time either. All right, so we've talked about you're going to do your evaluation, you're going to sort of diagnose whether you've got a problem here or not, you're going to prioritize things, making sure that you put first things first and the most important things. The other thing is you're going to limit the amount of things that you work on, and you're going to work on those things which you are good at work and at home. Spend time focused on the things that are your strengths and try to mitigate against those weaknesses. Delegate, find ways to cover off on those things that you're not good at so that they don't go undone. The objective I had in this discussion today was to get you thinking about your work ethic and your attitude surrounding work. Are you one of these people who believes that you can never put in enough effort, that it's more is better, and you are becoming maybe a bit of a workaholic and things in your life are suffering as a result of that? And it takes often an outsider, someone to get you to give some consideration to this. Of course, you do need to do your own introspection to ascertain whether this is true or not. Don't be quick to dismiss this. In fact, the quicker you are to dismiss this, it's either an indication that you know for sure, it's like, no, actually I'm feeling a little lazy, I'm not doing much at all, or you have that nature where more is better and you really think that work is all that matters. And you're probably the person who needs this more than anyone. I really just wanted to convince you to give some thought to this, and then you know what to do. You can take some of the advice I gave in terms of how to remedy this situation, but schedule this in. Take a look at this from time to time. In fact, copy down the link of this, send it to some people that you know and ask them, what do you think about me? Do you think I'm overworking? Well, what about you? And you maybe discuss this with some of your loved ones. But then in that calendar where maybe 4 times a year, you have a recurring reminder, put the link in here so that you can rewatch the video and remind yourself what you're going to do to make sure that you're on the right trajectory. Remember, it's the journey, not the destination. I think that's where I want to leave it today. I hope you got something out of this. Whether you did or didn't, please leave a comment that we can learn from, because we need to learn from one another. Perpetual refinement.